So I'm routinely getting asked about budget graphics cards for budget PC builds, whether it be in the comment section, Twitter DM, Instagram DM, MySpace. So I thought it would be nice to make a budget GPU video for you guys here in late 2020. Now, I'm not an expert, but not only am I not an expert, you're not an expert, so you should be doing your own research on these cards if you are interested in them. I'll leave eBay links to all these down below. We're doing used cards today. I don't want to do new cards because no one realistically buys new cards for budget builds unless you're trying to buy all new shit. You want to buy a brand new budget build? You can do that, but I don't really see a lot of people doing that. The only things you shouldn't be buying used for PC parts, hard drives, because that's really dangerous, and power supplies, which is even more dangerous, actually. I did do a video talking about a lot of the same graphics cards we'll be talking about in this video. The difference is that we'll only be talking about graphics card today, and we'll be going a little bit more in depth. With all that being said, though, let's hop right into it, and if you do go on to enjoy this video, consider dropping us a sub down below. Alright, 3 categories. Not really 3 categories, though. 3 price points we'll be going over in this video today. We have $100 cards, $200 cards, and $300 cards. $300 cards aren't budget, and once you go past $300 to $350, you start to get into like high-end cards. Once you start paying $400, $500, $600 for cards, then you're getting into some weird shit. Category 1 being at $100, these cards are all going to be, and by all I mean the 2 cards that I have, they're going to be 4 gigabytes and under. 4 gigabyte cards will do you just fine. So if you're playing a game that you lower the settings to increase frame rates for competitive or whatever other reason you're doing it, you likely don't even need 4 gigabytes. I ran Fortnite at competitive settings, which is all low with epic view distance shit, whatever, on 100% resolution on DirectX 12, and I only used about 2.7 gigabytes of VRAM. So the $100 category is going to be cards that are good for 1080p gaming at decent frame rates and some 1080p editing here and there. Nothing too heavy though, nothing like 1440p. The first card we have in this category is from AMD, and it is the one, the only RX 574 gigabyte. Some people might ask me, why didn't you go with the 584 gigabyte or the 484 gigabyte? Obviously the 480 would have to be less and the 584 gigabyte couldn't be that much more. Nah, 584 gigs are like 130 and 484 gigs are about the same price as 574 gigs. So you'll be paying around $100 for this card, and you're getting 4 gigabytes of GDDR5 RAM running at 1700 megahertz on a 192-bit bus. Did I say 192? 256, my bad. It also has core clocks from 1000 megahertz to about 1100 megahertz. These are all tech specs. I know you guys who aren't nerdies won't understand. It's fine. These are all for the nerds. Like I said, 4 gigabyte card, good for esports titles, 1080p editing. This is more of a starter card, something to get your gaming rig on its feet, and then afterward you can upgrade to something that's like an 8 gigabyte or a 6 gigabyte card, something like that. I wouldn't recommend doing anything other than gaming with this thing though. Streaming, editing, they can do it, just not well, and I wouldn't really recommend it. You won't have a good experience. The next card might be able to stream a little bit, providing you aren't playing a game on the exact same graphics card. Our next card's from NVIDIA. It's a good, old-fashioned, one-of-a-kind. We have the GTX 1060, and by one-of-a-kind, I mean probably the most common graphics card on the planet today. This is the 1060 3 gigabyte though, which you can also find for about $100, and it has similar specs to the RX 574 gigabyte, but it has different specs that it make it perform just as well with less RAM. Now the 1060 has 3 gigabytes of GDDR5 running at 1500 megahertz on a 192-bit bus, which is not as good as the RX 574 gigabyte, but the core clocks are much higher, with a base clock of 1500 megahertz and a boost clock of 1700 megahertz. For reference, my RX 584 gigabyte, or my 584 gigabyte, 8 gigabyte, runs at 1350 megahertz, and that's overclocked. So the 1060, again, it's one of those cards that you don't want to do much more than game with it. In our next category, I'll have cards that you might be able to stream with. There isn't really too much I can say about this card, other than it's made specifically for gaming. I wouldn't really do anything more than playing GTA on low settings. I think that's the extent of what this card can do. Maybe GTA on medium settings or a little bit higher. Not much though. Let's move on to the $200 category. These are all going to be 8 and 6 gigabyte cards. That also includes the $300 category as well. 8 and 6 gigabyte cards are something you can use to stream, something you can use to edit, something you can use to game and stream at the same time if you have a good enough CPU and you're good enough as a wizard up here. The first one we'll be going over in the $200 category is my own personal graphics card in the RX 580 8 gigabyte, which is Still to this day, even 3 years later, it's still one of the best graphics cards you can get for the price that it's offered at. I got mine for about $155, and for $155, you're getting 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 memory running at 2000 megahertz on a 256-bit bus. Core clocks are a bit lower than what you'd see on NVIDIA graphics cards in this category of cards, mid-range pretty much, with a base clock of 1250 megahertz and a boost clock of 1350 megahertz. This card still kicks ass in my opinion. I have it paired with an i7-3770, and I'm very soon going to pair it with a Ryzen 5 1600. Stay tuned for that, because even though this card was made back in 2017, or released back in 2017, it still holds up to a lot of the modern tasks you could throw at it today. I can run Warzone consistently around 80 frames per second when I'm not recording or streaming. I can run Fortnite well over 144. I can run BeamNG, which is an extremely old, extremely hard game to run, at decent frame rates as well, even on ultra settings. You'd be really hard pressed to find a card this price that gives you this type of performance, especially in the used market. Speaking of cards that match this card, we're about to talk about a card that is extremely similar to this one, and sometimes even cheaper. And in some cases, and some people might disagree with this, but this card is in some cases better. We have the GTX 1060 6GB, which is a bit different. Now this card is about $150 to $160, which is about the same price as the RX 580, but it has 2 gigabytes less in VRAM. It makes up for it though, we'll see. Unlike the GTX 1060 3GB, instead of having memory clocked at 1500 megahertz, this memory is clocked at 2000 megahertz, just like the RX 588GB, and it's running on a 192-bit bus. The core clocks are the same as the 3GB, 1500 to 1700 megahertz, which means that the core clocks much higher than the RX 580, and in a lot of games, these cards literally are right here. Sometimes the 580's here, sometimes the 1060's here. They're pretty much the same card, they're very similar prices, and I'd recommend both these cards for people who are not trying to spend a fortune. If you're smart enough, you could probably stream with the 1060, to be honest with you. NVENC is a beautiful thing. With 6 gigabytes, you'll also be able to do any type of editing that you want. Maybe not the fastest, but it'll work. In fact, both the RX 588GB and the 1060 should be capable of some light 1440p editing, and if you wanted to do 4K editing on these, put the playback resolution on like 1/8. Maybe you'll be able to do it. Actually, that's not even a maybe, because I have a 588GB and I've edited 4K footage, so you'll be fine. The last card in this category is a trooper of a fucking card, but it is one that's kind of canceled out by the 1660 Super. That is the GTX 1070 8GB. I'm not going to go over this card super in depth because the 1660 Super kind of beats it out, and I would probably recommend a 1660 Super over this card, to be honest with you. But the GTX 1070 can be found at the very least for $200, so that's the very bare minimum you'll be paying, but you're more likely to find these cards between anywhere from $210 and $230. Tech specs include the exact same memory as the 588GB, 8GB, DDR5, 2000 megahertz, 256-bit bus, pretty quick. It also has similar core clocks to the GTX 1060, 1500 megahertz base, and almost 1700 megahertz boost. I think it's like 1680. This card's an absolute trooper for the price that it's offered at. The only issue is that the GTX 1660 Super is not only very similar when you buy them used in terms of price, but you can buy it new for not much more, which is why I'd recommend this card over a 1070, is because not only can you get it brand new, but you can get it brand new. And again, you can just get it brand new. And you know, the same things apply to the 1070 as it did with the last few cards. 1440p editing, decently, smooth 1080p editing, good 1080p gameplay. Pretty good card. We're going to start off the $300 category with the 1660 Super, and we're going to start that now. Now, category 3 is a special one. All of these cards are 8 and 6 gigabyte cards, but they are all GDDR6 cards. All of these cards are capable of 1440p gameplay and very high frame rate 1080p gameplay. You can also very easily stream on these cards if you have a system set up properly and you know how to stream. Not only that, but you could edit on these cards all the way up to 4K footage smoothly. Alright, we're about to speed run through this because this is the most expensive category. I don't expect people to buy from these. We're starting off with the 1660 Super. So the 1660 Super has 6 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory running at 1750 megahertz and a 192-bit bus, which doesn't sound as good as the GDDR5, but it's GDDR6, which means not only is it more power efficient, but it's more powerful. It essentially has the exact same core clocks as the 1070, 1500 megahertz to about 1700 megahertz, but that GDDR6 memory does wonders for this card. In terms of mid-range GPUs, before you start buying stuff like RTX cards and 5700 XTs, which are just hulking massive fuck off GPUs, this is probably the best card you can get prior to those categories. Not only is it a balanced amount of VRAM, but it has balanced clocks, a price that is not insane, and which is fucking crazy to say for NVIDIA. And for pretty much all tasks that people are doing nowadays, it'll work perfectly. With the EVGA encoder, you could very easily stream smoothly. With the memory, you'll be able to edit whatever the fuck you want, however fast you want. It might not be the fastest at rendering it because it only has 6 GB of GDDR6, but you'll be fine. You want high FPS on lower settings, you want even decent FPS at higher settings, the RX 588 GB is probably the best card you can get for under $200, but for under $250, you're going with the 1660 Super. Next card. I hate PewDiePie. Why am I doing this? Next up, we have another 6 GB card in the 5600 XT. This is a card from AMD that is, in my opinion, again, one of the best mid-rangers out there, but to be honest, it's kind of in a weird spot. It's surrounded by the 5500 XT and the 5700 XT. The RX 5700 XT is like one of the best all-around graphics cards. I think it was voted like the best GPU of 2019, something like that. It has specs and a price that you can't really fuck with, but the 5500 XT is shit. It's dog shit, no one likes it, no one wants it, no one has one. So the 5600 XT is a decent middle ground, but it's surrounded by these two cards that basically both scream, get the 5700 XT. With the RX 5600 XT, you'll be getting 6 GB of GDDR6 running at 1500 MHz on a 192-bit bus. It also has core clocks similar to my RX 588 GB with a base clock of 1100 MHz all the way up to about 1350. There isn't really anything I could say about this card that I haven't said about all the other ones. We're at that point in the video. I don't like that. The thing is that cards at this price point, they're good. And especially once you get past them, even like with the 5700 XT, which is like $350 to $400, they're good cards. But the AMD cards don't have NVENC, which means that you can't stream as well. And having a card that can both game and stream right out of the box is really, really nice, at least in my opinion. And that's actually kind of one of the issues of the 5600 XT. It's $250 to $280 on average. You can get a 1660 Super for cheaper, but it doesn't perform as well. The thing is that it performs pretty similarly, but at the end of the day, the 5700 XT is more powerful. So if you're looking for the best in-game performance and the most amount of power for your money, the 5600 XT will do you just fine. But if you're looking to do some streaming and you're willing to sacrifice a few dollars, NVIDIA is the way to go. Last card we're going to go over, and I'm not even really going to go over, it's just the RTX 2060. You can get one of these used for $300, but new, you're paying like $350. 6 GB of GDDR6 running at 1750 MHz, 192-bit bus, core clocks that are on the fucking I don't care. I don't care. This isn't budget. I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm not gonna go over the 2060. Not a budget card, but I wanted to put it in that category because it fit the price. That's the cheapest RTX card you can get, by the way. The cheapest ray tracing card, about $300. Now, I know there's a lot of other graphics cards out there that fit in these categories that I should have gone over. I know this, but I have already been recording for about 30 minutes. This video is going to be long as hell. Not only that, but I feel like I covered the basis of the price ranges that people are looking at. Most people who message me asking about graphics cards are usually looking for cards under about $250. So that's why I wanted to include the $300 price range in there to get those people. If you guys have any recommendations for graphics cards, please be sure to leave them down below. I'd like to continue this discussion. I'll have a lot more PC content in the future. This video is going up very beginning of November. I'll have PC content at the end of November. Like I've been saying, past few weeks, I have RAM and all the other pieces in this desktop to build a PC. And the other day, I bought a case. So I have a case coming in. All I need is a motherboard and CPU, which I'll have the money for not next month, this month. So I'll be doing a PC build later this month, and I'll be including all the parts and shit when we get there, okay? Real quick before we go though, let's shout out our members. Huge shout out to The Ballin' Boy, JG, Crazy V, Waterless, Heberbrine 3, D, Jacques, Ra, God, Snowy Ice Cream, and Tough. I can't say thank you enough, boys. I sincerely appreciate you helping out the channel. And for you PC Master Race boys, again, I did do a scheduling video, which I think they saw. But if you'd like to join the PC Master Race or even the console tier shit, you'll get verbal shoutouts at the end of videos, you'll get early access to videos in the PC Master Race tier, you'll get the community tab, even if you're paying $1 a month. It's fucking awesome. But I think that's going to do it for this video. If you did go on to enjoy it, please be sure to drop it a like and subscribe if you are new. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.